So, how was the Celestial Emissary fight?
It was pretty good. Pretty good.
What new game were you on? Because I was like, there was a few attempts on that.
Yeah, new game +2. Yeah, the first attempt, I would have been able to take him down faster, but the chat wanted to see the little guys kill him with the bone shaman blades. Managed to hit the whole group on the second one, and they just massively murdered each other. It was genocide.
Wait, do you like AoE affect the enemies when you use the bone, or what? Like,
Well, they kind of group up when they try to attack you all together like that. So you basically just bait them to where they're all in a big group, and it has kind of an AoE effect. When it hits one, it will hit all the other ones. And if he's in his little form, you can actually hit the boss, and they'll all just gang up on him and beat him to death.
So wait, you hit the boss and he becomes the target? I thought you you hit the little guys.
In his little format, before he goes big, you can hit the main boss, and they'll all team up and just gank him.
What?
But once he goes big, you can't hit the yeah, you can't hit the big one.
Oh, that's so. Wait, so when you hit one of the little ones when he's big,
he'll kill it. He'll like stomp on it.
The big guy will get the little guy. So basically, whoever you hit is the target. It's not just I thought it was something like Undead Rapport or whatever it was, where you know what I mean.
It's similar, but the enemy that you hit with the shaman bone blade will still attack you if you're nearby, and it doesn't have an alternative target.
Oh, so basically, what happens is that one becomes effectively neutral, hostile, and everything else.
So it's kind of like
exactly
the giant seed, but to an NPC enemy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Wow, that's ridiculous.
That's pretty interesting.
It's cool because if you're like New Game +7 and you get invaded by somebody, you can hit like a werewolf with one, and they'll just like wreck the crap out of that.
I gotta hit the werewolf, I guess.
Oh.
I guess you could parry into Bone Blade if you're close enough.
That seems
I would say so.
Yeah, useful because like you parry and then you fucking kill him anyways.
Yeah.
No, I meant.
No, he meant the enemy.
PvP.
Like.
Oh, I see. I see.
Yeah, it's like
I'm just trying to think how you do it quickly without getting just completely destroyed.
Yeah, it definitely takes a lot of.
How does it last?
It lasts about, I want to say, 15 to 30 seconds max. No longer than 30
Super
seconds.
Carbo.
Pretty short. It's very situational, but it's nice in situations where like, you know, you might be New Game +5 and you're going through Menzies. There's a bunch of giant spiders. You know, that giant spider that's hanging.
Oh, I guess if you could hit him.
Yeah, you hit him, and all the little ones will try and kill him, and he just like he spams that huge spell and just kills them all, nukes them all down.
Wait, what spell is this? I'm lost. The spider?
He'll go back on his hind legs, and it's like the Karmic Justice explosion.
Huh.
The spider in Mensis, the one that's normally like suspended with the little guys on the sides?
Yeah, the big one. The really big one. Yeah.
In the room before the dude with the Rosmarius or whatever, right?
Yeah, dude. Like that spider, I thought all it did was swipe at you a little bit, and if you get close enough, he does the thing where he does all of the limbs forward and just swipes you over and over again, and that's all he had.
Yeah, no, he's got a bunch of different attacks, but I think it's just because he's easy to kill or run past in the first place.
I could not damage him.
There's 6 shaman bone blades placed at the end of that little altar, so it's kind of like a hint, like here you go. There's six tries. use them on these spiders. See what happens.
Yeah. Meanwhile, you're getting wrecked.
Yeah.
That spider, I've never killed it. I just attacked it a little bit, and at one point I kited it like to the hallway and let the little kill all the little guys, which took forever. And then I went in to go and kill him in the hallway, and that was about the dumbest thing I could have done because you can't dodge or get the hell out of the way, and you just keep swiping at you.
So what's everyone been up to? It's been a while since we've all had a chance to talk. I know Ty's been fucking playing the shit out of H1Z1.
Been playing, a little bit hooked on that game. By a little bit, I mean I've never played anything more like, I don't know, I just can't stop.
It looks really fun.
It's the most fun I've had since early Dark Souls 1 PvP, which is saying a lot because I think early Dark Souls 1 PvP is the most obsessed I've been with a video game since Diablo 2, and that's the most obsessed I've ever been with a video game. So it's like, this is the third most obsessed I've ever been in my life with a video game.
Wow.
Really?
Saying a lot.
Yeah, this is a
it's
game
just
that's
so good.
Like what, closed beta. You have to.
Yeah, isn't it
still
like
No,
early
it's,
access?
no,
alpha
no,
or
no.
whatever?
It's open alpha, which is like even worse in a way.
Wow, dude. Open
Oh,
But
it's
then
super rough.
And
Yeah.
every game is alpha now. Have you
That-
seen
yeah.
Steam?
Mhm.
Everything
Oh, yeah.
is early access.
Well, it's because
alpha
nobody wants to
because-
commit. It's like the beta thing.
What is the deal with that, dude?
It's
I don't
almost
know.
like the new.
It's kind of shit, but I don't know. It was $20. It was well worth $20, like 100 times over.
After
Yeah.
DayZ, though, I didn't think you'd be able to get into it. But I guess like if you can get it in short, quick doses.
This is not
Well,
Daisy. This
yeah.
is
Well,
a
not the
whole
horrible
different
mechanics, but the
planet of
overall
gaming.
concept.
Nope,
The-
nope.
the battle
nope.
royale. Yes.
That's the only thing I play. I've never played the base game. I don't know what H1Z1's actually about.
It's-
I've never
it's
seen a zombie.
literally-
I've never
it's-
seen a zombie, even though it's apparently in the title and
Oh, yeah,
on the
yeah,
cover. I've only fought other players in like a Hunger Games style like battle royale, and that's it. And it's I don't know.
That reminds
It's-
me a lot of when I was sorry to interrupt you, but it reminds me a lot of like when I was a kid playing World of Warcraft, or not World of Warcraft, sorry, like the regular Warcraft 3, like Frozen Throne. All I did was play like the tower defense
Custom
and the
maps,
mall.
yeah.
I don't think I ever actually played the campaign
I did.
or fought anybody. But
I didn't finish Frozen Throne.
so what is the battle royale like?
Basically, no. Battle Royale, in a nutshell, if you've seen the Hunger Games or whatever, it's kind of like that. You take 100 and, we'll say between 100 and 150 people. You drop them all randomly on this huge map that spans like several miles in game. And you land, you have nothing, and you just have to find weapons and kill as many people and survive until you're the last one standing. It's like the ultimate, it's essentially an MMO survival shooter, if that makes any sense. Because there's 150 people. This is not like a CS lobby. This is not 15 people just fragging each other for 20 minutes to see who's best. This is like you have one life. When you're dead, you're out of that game forever. Like there's no respawning. And you just have to kill and survive, and you can team up with people. You can be a scumbag and like turn on everyone. I started loving it because of the social aspect, because it's open mic. Like anyone can talk to anyone with like proximity microphone. So there's a lot of shit talking in the game, like and that I love that. Like, because I'm not terribly good at shooters, but what I am good at is making fun of the people I kill. So I have a really fun time doing that when I actually score kills, and that's what hooked me on the game. And then, you make like temporary friendships and stuff, and you turn on your friends, and just because the game is so weird and wonky and pseudo glitchy, all kinds of bizarre shit can happen that you don't even predict. So it reminds me a lot of Dark Souls 1 invading and stuff, because every time you start a new instance of the game, anything could happen. Like you never know what you're gonna run into. So I don't know.
I feel like I should buy that game now. Like, you
It's
kind of
for
sold
$20.
me on that.
For $20, it might hook you as hard as it hooked me.
I'm ready
or
for
it
a
might not,
hook.
but I
I
think
could
you'll get
use a good
$20
hook.
worth of content.
It's
How,
very like you can do something significant in there, and it's fun and crazy, and then put it down, and you're done. Like you're not stuck with it.
That's another really nice thing. You can sit down if you have 20 minutes or half an hour to spare. You can sit down and just play either several bad battle royales where you die early, or one really good one where you make it to the end, and then you just walk away from it. There's no like. It's very like I said, instance based. Everything you get in one game, that's all you have, and then when you die, it's all gone. So it's like episodic in a way.
Not
But
about
I really like
grinding
that
or any of
aspect
that.
of it.
How long do the matches last? Like,
They can last. I'd say the longest a match could possibly last is like 40 minutes, and that's if everybody is super passive at the end. Like if everybody is camping and hiding in the woods and no one wants to actually fight. Because what happens is, if you imagine the giant map,
I was gonna say, like, how big
you've
is
probably
the map?
seen screenshots of
It's
the
enormous.
gas.
They're huge.
Yeah, it's
dude.
huge.
They're
It's like
massive.
several square miles. Like it's really, really big. If you were to run from one end of the map to the other, it's like that's probably half an hour of nonstop running. Like it's a really, really long distance. But what happens is if you look on your map, gas is eventually released, and the gas starts to close in to a central area on the map that's random. So you start fighting, you land in, and for the first 10 minutes, everyone's just fighting and surviving and getting weapons and stuff. And then you check your map and you'll see this indicator showing where like the safe zone is. And everybody has to go to the safe zone because otherwise poison gas starts to like close in on the map. So it forces everybody to start to enter a smaller and smaller area. And at the very end of the game, if you're like 40 minutes in, the safe zone is like as big as like someone's backyard. Like it's really small. So eventually, even if everybody plays super passive and everyone camps and everyone, hides in a bush and hopes to just survive it out, eventually you're going to be like almost in the same room as someone with regards to the map. So it forces confrontation, and that's probably my favorite part. Is there's always somewhere to go, and you'll always run into other people that are also trying to survive. So. It's neat. It's a neat concept. Apparently, Arma 3 has like a very similar mode that came out first.
They do.
And a lot of people say it's like it's obviously using Arma's engine, so it's more robust because Arma has
visually. Yes.
No, is it visually okay? But same idea. It's just like Hunger Games style combat where you only have one life, and when you're dead, you're dead.
The armor version, if it's anything like regular DayZ, and what I've seen, like of every preview piece that they've shown for Arma 3, their UI is not any better, and it's the biggest, clunkiest piece of garbage that it's been forever.
Well, look at DayZ, H1Z1, and Arma, and all those games. They have horrendous UIs. Like it's and I say that like I'm a UI artist. Jerp is a UI programmer, so we know what we're talking about. And when we look at that, we cringe. But if the game is good enough, you just deal with it. Like DayZ, when I actually enjoyed DayZ for like a brief period, I was able to look past how awful the interface and the inventory management system was so bad. But you're willing to look past all of that if the gameplay is there. But man, those games, they just need one person, a professional, to sit down with that, like each of those companies, and be like, yo, here's how it's done. Like here's how to take a simple but clean design that actually works, rather than this clunky garbage you've been.
Well, they need to make it responsive too. Like all of the things that you do in the game are just like in Arma, at least.
Delayed.
They're delayed, they're unresponsive, you have to mash them over and over again.
Yeah. The only thing that is responsive is the shooting, which ultimately is the most important thing. That's why I keep playing the game. If the shooting was as glitchy and unresponsive as the inventory and like picking up items and all that stuff, I definitely wouldn't play. But the shooting feels so good in that game. Unless you run into a hacker who's using an aimbotter, in which case, GG. So for anyone who is listening to this, if you are interested in getting into H1Z1, be aware that hackers are just part of the world, and you're going to get aimbotted several times a day if you play as much as me, and you just got to accept that they're going to slowly fix that. It's in early alpha, and if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably a Souls fan, and you're definitely used to your share of hackers. So
great.
Nightmares of Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, Dark Souls
2 with the
fun,
flying hackers that were immune to gravity and could like send you into different places in the map, and
That was
Dark
nuts.
Souls 2 had some pretty hilarious hackers too, though.
Oh, dude. Absolutely. The last time I was hacked in Dark Souls 2 was the funniest. I was standing in the servants' quarters, which is like my favorite place to just duel when I'm in the mood to duel. And Santa shows up. We all know who Santa is. And he teleports to me from wherever he was, backstabs me. I end up on the roof of the servants' quarters looking down at the bonfire. I'm like in the rafters, but you're not supposed to be up there. So even though they're rafters, you can't actually drop back down to the bonfire. While I'm up there, he puts 1 million hacked items around my bonfire and then basically like backstabs me back down onto like the floor and then leaves. So basically he ruined my game by filling my bonfire with hacked items, which means if I pick one up by accident, I could be soft banned.
Yeah.
Or if somebody invades me or co-ops with me, and picks up one of the
And they're
items,
soft
just being
banned.
like, "Oh my god, an item!" Like it fucks everyone over so bad.
Dude.
That was the last time I was hacked, and I think that might have been the last session I ever played of that game as well.
I am so glad they permanently banned that guy, and I hope to God he never picks up another controller
Yeah.
ever
Well,
again.
Did they finally get rid of him?
Didn't they? I heard they
No,
took his
he
account
came
away.
back.
I wouldn't
If-
think
if
so,
You,
no.
If you look at like the Steam forums and stuff, and you know where to look, these people talk to each other, like Santa and all of his like elves or whatever. And they actually they have a method. Yeah, they have a method of getting around being banned. The same way that like a good player would be if they accidentally picked up an item. Like you can get unsoft banned.
It's
I won't
so
talk about how
dumb
it's
that
done, but
exists.
yeah.
Yeah. Whatever. I won't go into
Well,
it.
it was a band-aid
I'd-
solution for a
Part
bigger
of
problem, right?
the main reason I quit Dark Souls 2. It wasn't just
This
the
is the only
combat,
reason
it was
I-
all those hackers that just
Well, see, this is why I'm playing it on PS4 right now and having a blast because
That's true.
Like
That's true.
PS4 and Xbox One or whatever, since there are no hackers we know of, everyone has to do everything the hard way. Which for some people that sucks. For people who make a lot of builds and everything and may have used like mules or save editors, like that's like for them it's harder. But just knowing that I'm not gonna run into someone who can just ruin my game or teleport me somewhere or fill my level with hacked items or just any of those stupid glitches, just knowing that everyone I'm fighting is legit is like the most relief I've had in a Souls game ever.
Have you noticed that there don't seem to be that many people who are using invisible weapon rings anymore?
Well, yeah, because they can't.
Yeah,
Well, I'm subtly kind of
I
pointing
haven't
that
seen
out.
one yet, actually. In
Really subtle.
Yeah, I haven't seen one yet because I generally only do low level PvP, but yeah, I haven't seen any yet.
Yeah, those
'Cause it's
those
actually
people who
hard now,
have
it's
it
a
in
challenge.
mass are full of shit. The people who have it,
Oh yeah,
like who just like you suddenly come across like in the course of a 2-3 hour stream, like 10 people, 15 people who have it. It's like, no, this
Of
should be a
course.
thing you never see, and it's like,
Yeah,
oh,
well,
wow.
and that's the problem with save editing, and then that's the problem is you take save editing and then you try to include elements in your game that combat save editing and try to band-aid fix soul memory exploits and all that, and you end up with a mess. Just one like Dark Souls 2 before it came to PS4 and like Xbox One was such a mess
Oh, yeah.
of like half the people that were getting soft banned were actually the good guys, like the streamers that don't cheat and like they try to be good and like they end up getting soft banned, and then the super hackers are the ones that keep multiplying forever.
scot-free.
Yeah,
and
because they're the ones who are
causing
getting
people
away
to
with
get
it
save edited.
most easily.
Yeah, so it didn't really die on good terms, I don't think, but I'm so happy that it exists now for PS4 and Xbox One. And as a streamer, I think it is worth the investment of the $60-$70
Yeah.
or whatever for the new game, because you don't get stream sniped by hackers, right?
Oh yeah.
If you're a casual player or you're a PvPer that doesn't stream, it may not be worth it because generally you don't encounter many hackers anyway because you don't have them following you around. So like I've talked to a lot of people that have done 1,000 hours of Dark Souls 2 PvP and never seen a hacker, and it's because they're not streaming. They don't have people following them around trying to hack them. Whereas all of us have all dealt with waves of hackers because they just go to wherever you are and ruin your game, right?
it's kind of hilarious to see how apparent that kind of stuff is in the Souls games, like with the exception of the PlayStation 4 stuff now, but any of the consoles before, any of the PC stuff was just rampant with hackers, more so than a lot of other games. And I wonder how much of that is just because like FromSoft seems to design the games without ever considering that people are going to try to fuck with it. Like
It's a trust thing.
well,
Yeah.
honestly, they seem to balance stuff like on the assumption that people are going to be legit.
Oh, of
And,
course.
like, it's really weird. Like those rings, for
Definitely.
instance, they're gated behind this really difficult content, so it's actually supposed to be, a challenge, and they're not supposed to be like readily available. Yeah. And then thank God fucking Bloodborne doesn't have like mules or anything, because imagine like level 10 builds running around with like 27% cursed gems and shit. Like,
Oh my god, it's bad. Yeah, it's bad enough even at the levels that they're used.
brutal. That would be absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
So
The day when PS4 saves become like
Compromised,
unencrypted,
yeah.
when someone figures that out, it's we're gonna be back.
Back
We're
where
gonna be
we
back in
started,
the
yeah.
dark ages.
Let's hope that never happens. time soon.
Yes.
Man. I'm really enjoying.
I think we got
Bloodborne the
some
way it
time.
is.
I don't think it's. I think it'll take a while. Like if you look at how long it took PS3 to get hacked for like Dark Souls, like to get hacked to a point where we all started running into hackers. It was a long time. Like it was late into Dark Souls 1's life. And certainly I'd never heard of hackers in Demon Souls, but I knew they existed, but they definitely weren't rampant or visible in any way. So I don't know. Maybe it's the the PlayStation, like the way the saves are set up in the first place. But I think there's some time. I think if anything, Xbox One is going to get super hacked way before PlayStation 4.
If it was like the Xbox 360, then easy. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that you didn't even have to try for that. You just a USB key and like here, have all the hacks.
The good thing is that Dark Souls 1 got hacked because they patched the bottomless box glitch. You know, people just wanted a fast way to make PvP builds, and that
There was a need for it.
Right, and with Bloodborne, we really don't need that. I mean, like, it takes 2 days to make a build? Running through the game is fairly easy.
Like not even that. Yeah, if you're like me and you like to just PvP as early as possible,
hours.
Like a couple hours.
I've seen you and Brandon
have
make builds in like 3-4 hours. So.
Oh yeah, you can have, as long as you have your fully upgraded weapon, right? You're ready to go. Like the gems and everything are obviously for the top tier PvP, but you can get really good, almost meta level PvP in a couple of hours. It's good stuff.
I'm gonna have to do that pretty soon. I want to get into some Bloodborne PvP because I haven't really bothered with it just yet. But and I've watched people too. It looks like I haven't yet got a chance to formulate my opinions on it yet, so I really don't know if it's gonna be fantastic or not. What I've seen on the streams is like, I don't really know. But at some point, I'm gonna have to actually make some proper builds and dig into it.
I think the general consensus is that it's super fucking fun when it works, but that's a pretty big, when it works. Like there's a huge qualifier on it. But like, is it the reason you stopped, Ty? Because like you just couldn't fucking connect with people, or what?
Well, I stopped for 2 reasons. The number one reason was that the connections for me never fully fixed themselves. Like when they patched it, connections definitely got better, like way better, but not to the point where I knew I was getting as many invasions as I should have been getting. Like, because a lot of people would be in my stream and they'd be giving me all this advice and stuff. They're like, oh, go here, there's lots of PvP here. Go there, there's lots of PvP here. And I'm like, dude, I'm sitting in a stream with 800 viewers. And if I asked for a show of hands of how many people have builds that are in my range and are standing in my area trying to invade me, there'd be like 100 people. So now you're telling me to go to some random place in the game where you happen to be getting PvP. It's like, I've got 100 friends that know exactly how to get in my world, and we can't. So I'm just like, so that was my number one thing, is like they never actually fixed matchmaking. It works for some people, it doesn't work for others. Like Brandon gets no PvP whatsoever. He'll get duels in the Nightmare Frontier like every several minutes or whatever, but never anything consistent. So that was my first problem. And my second problem was I fell in love with fighting gankers in that game, and I think it spoiled me. I had a few amazing like ganker fights where I'd fight like 3v1s and just have like an absolute blast, and then I stopped being able to find gankers, and then all I was able to find were like viewers who were stream sniping me, and they all had gems and they all had like fully maxed out builds, and they would two-shot me. Like my build where I played for 10 hours or whatever, but I didn't chalice dungeon farm. I just wanted to get into PvP and jump in. I was getting like two-shot by these people who were farming chalice dungeons for hours and hours, getting all the best stuff. But at the end of the day, like I said, I was only having duels, and duels got really boring for me in Bloodborne. I just don't find them interesting compared to ganks. I think fighting gankers in Bloodborne is like one of the best experiences in all of the Souls games, but I can't get them when I want them. I always just fight viewers, and it's so boring.
I remember watching your stream where you were in the Charnel Lane or whatever, and there's that fucking like elevator, and then you're just getting people like to run at you and just fall down
that
the
was
well,
the most fun ever. And then the gankers disappeared. It was like I had a blast for a couple of hours, and I had a couple of really good runs, and then just no more gankers. I just ended up fighting viewers that were like, way stronger than me because I was using a level 30 like low level gank fighter. Like he didn't even have, he had a +5 weapon, no armor, nothing like that, which I mean you could argue that's my fault for being underpowered or whatever, but like I'm level 30
you're just
standing in Hemwick Lane invading people. Like I don't expect to be fighting people with gems and stuff already,
Yeah.
and like guys that can one shot me. But because I'm streaming to 1,000 people or whatever, and a lot of those are very hardcore Bloodborne players who have already, you know, they've done the graveyard skip and gone and unlocked all this and got the best of that, and then now they're here in Hemwick, like just literally one-shotting me with a saw blade. So it started to drive me crazy, and the gankers all just like, I guess they just got scared of me. They got scared of my skills. That's what it is. They're afraid. They're afraid of my skills, and then they all just disappeared. And then I only fought like super viewers.
Well, what about the fact that like they're probably not getting many people invading? They're probably getting bored. Like think about it. How many people are summoning in order to trigger the Bell Maiden?
I think that's the biggest issue. I don't understand that fucking thing of only 2 areas having like dedicated Bell Maidens, and otherwise you could just avoid PvP entirely. Like it seems so ass backwards.
My theory at the end of the day
is contrary to Souls.
My theory is that the Souls games sell copies because of their PvE and how hard it is, and it's famous. You die so many times, you tell your friends, "Oh my god, this game's so hard." So everybody, like, that's what sells the game. At the end of the day, PvP creates a very specific community and everything, but it's not guaranteeing their sales. So I find the further ahead that the Soul series goes, the less they're catering to a robust PvP community, because that's not getting them, that's not going to generate them their sales. That's my theory, because I have yet to see that disproven.
I would agree with that.
I'm going to disagree with that, actually, because you look at, well, I mean, assuming what you're saying is, they seem to be kind of disregarding the PvP aspects of the game and focusing more on the PvE, whatever, right? Look at Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2. There's like a dedicated arena specifically for the purpose of PvP. Like it's
yeah, but that came in a DLC in the second game in the series. Like you can't say
that was introduced in Dark Souls 1, but it was
because no. I'm convinced they added the PvP arena in to get in on the Twitch, to be a part of the Twitch bandwagon, and the timing is perfect. If you look at when they added that in, that was late 2012.
Something like that,
because the game came out 2011, the DLC came out late 2012, like August-ish of 2012, didn't it? That's
something
when the
like
PC version dropped. That was right when obviously Twitch has been popular for a long time, but that was, Justin switched over to Twitch TV, streaming games and stuff started to be a huge thing. And honestly, I think the huge influx and them realizing that there was a PvP community to be had here and everything, but I still don't, I consider that a little bit of a phone in, meaning yes, there was an arena, but really how much work went
I'm going to agree and disagree at the same time, because Ty has a really good point here, in that the DLC arena was kind of a tacked on request from the fans, because they did say initially that DLC was not going to be a thing with Dark Souls, and then they said, okay, well, now guess what, we have DLC coming with all these new features, the PvP. But let's look at the real problem here with the PvP, because it's not that they're not showing any care for the PvP, because I personally have spent a couple hundred hours PvPing in Bloodborne, and I love the mechanics, I love the combat system. The real problem lies in with the matchmaking. They don't seem to be putting enough attention into the servers to allow their players to cultivate that community. There is no community because there is no connection. That's really what the problem is.
Kind of a pain in the ass, but I don't know. I still feel a little odd about that, because the idea that it was done with the Twitch stuff in mind, I don't know. I think that's a gross overestimate on how in tune FromSoft is with the community at large. I really picture them as being in this little fucking bubble in Japan, and they don't really get out of that. But I don't know.
Agree with that.
So But I mean, either way, like it seems like a really, really silly way of having your matchmaking system work. Like you have to have these NPCs before it can even happen. Like,
I do think though that was a conscious decision. I think that they think that's appropriate for the game, and I think that they're significantly undervaluing the chaotic unpredictability of having just random invasions just omnipresent.
I think yeah, maybe having a shift from like that kind of standard single player experience of the main game and switching it to the Chalice dungeons, because they have like the different Chalice rights which are like specific for PvP and all this other stuff, and maybe that was their kind of PvP
but like,
focus, which is
so I don't claim to know a lot about the way Chalice dungeons are set up and everything. I mean, I've been through a bunch of them, and I've PvP'd in Chalice dungeons with friends and all that stuff. But like, how, like, to say that Chalice dungeons have all these different, like, rights where you can have one that's like PvP and different kinds of PvP. Do they all require you to share your glyphs with people, or can you, like, if I'm a player who isn't connected to the community, but I want, like, okay, let me describe. When I first started playing Dark Souls 1 and I started getting into PvP, I loved it. I loved fighting people and everything, but I was not a part of the community. I watched some YouTube videos, but I wasn't on, like, the forums. I wasn't on the wiki, or I didn't talk to anyone who knew anything. I kind of PvP'd in my own little world. And Dark Souls 1 was great for that, because you just get an orb, you go to a place where there are people, and you click it and you invade. And I did hundreds of hours of PvP before I even started streaming, just to find out I was obsessed with it. But when I look at Bloodborne and the way the Chalice dungeons are set up and stuff, and to say that, okay, that's where most of the features regarding PvP are and stuff, it feels like it's all geared towards like facilitating like a PvP like community. Like you're sharing your glyphs on the forum, and everyone's like, okay, this is the Reddit dungeon. This is where everyone's gonna go to PvP and stuff. But like, why isn't there, like, correct me if I'm wrong, is there a way to just somewhere in the main hub area where all the gravestones are, is there a way to just click on something and be like, let me invade a random Chalice dungeon somewhere?
Since the patch, they have actually kind of fixed that a little bit, and I tested that just a few days ago. The short root ritual chalice can be obtained through going through the Hintertomb chalices, which you get from the lower Thumeru chalice from a merchant behind an illusory wall, I believe on the 3rd or 4th layer. I want to say it's probably layer 4.
Oh my god. So they hit it.
They hide chalices,
so you go
in
up,
chalices.
down.
Yeah, and then once you get the short root, though, you can use that tombstone on the very end that says you need the short root and blah blah blah, and that will give you access to do quick co-op, which is broken as shit right now, in my opinion, because it will randomly spawn you in any type of dungeon, regardless if you meet the requirements. And you can be placed in a cursed dungeon in a room filled with enemies that can one-shot you. No joke, it is broken. That happens to me all the time. The adversarial search, though, that is pretty decent. I've found multiple Sinister Chalice dungeons and even just regular Chalice dungeons that people are actually, like, lots of PvP. Like, one night I found one with a bunch of Japanese players that were all rocking Blood Tinge builds. That was fun. Lots of shots.
Oh, Jesus.
I died many times.
Yeah.
But it was cool because it was like, oh man, here's this random chalice out of nowhere with a bunch of players that I don't even know, and they're all really good. So like, let's have fun.
You know what? See, that's awesome. That gives me a lot of hope. But the thing that worries me is everything you just described is like behind a wall, behind a wall, behind a wall, beneath a layer of, like, all of that requires you to go on the wiki and follow like a rabbit hole.
Well, not necessarily. Believe it or not,
it's
the only thing that makes it difficult is the fact that it's behind an illusory wall, and the story mode teaches you they don't exist.
Yeah.
How are you supposed? How is a viewer who's not on the wiki supposed to discover that?
I was just going through the dungeons and I found the door. I got the Hintertomb, because there's a door that one's pretty obvious. It's like there's a switch room. There's a bridge. It's a set dungeon, so you know exactly where it is.
Yeah.
The one that was tough to find was the illusory wall, because like I said, it teaches you there are none in the story mode. You go into the Chalice dungeons, all of a sudden you're supposed to find these things that you were taught don't exist. So once you find it, though, it's kind of obvious, because it looks just like all the other doorways, except it's got bricks. And there's no other tile in the game that looks like that one, you know? So it's kind of like...
Not only that, but there's this big audio cue. Like, you know how when you approach a boss in the Chalice Dungeons, there's that kind of like building white noise of audio. That happens when you get close to the illusory wall.
No way, really?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I normally have music playing, so I never hear that.
so-
Yeah.
Awesome, dude.
Oh no, I'm the same way, but no, I had found out that that's the case too. So if you actually mute the music, it's really easy to hear because it's all fucking silent
Oh,
otherwise.
that's cool.
But
If all else fails, because there are tons of different types of illusory walls, like the Eyes Great Chalice Dungeon, for instance, there will be those caves that you go through. And there'll be a long cave that connects to one of those stairways, and it's like the triple stairway. You know what I'm talking about? Like it goes up and then it goes around. And
I think that's the
Anyways,
like 3 Chalice Dungeons.
there's always a cave cap, and it's because they're procedurally generated dungeons, so it caps it off, and it looks like an entrance, but it's just a wall. One day I decided to hit it, and I've hit that thing a million times, and it's never been an illusory wall. One day it was. So it's like, oh man, they really want you to hit all the goddamn entryways sometimes. But they're only in root Chalice dungeons and the set Chalice dungeons that are hiding the specific stuff. So, you can go through it without doing the wiki, and as long as you're careful, you'll find everything. I mean, they made it pretty nice.
Okay.
It's gonna be a bit of a mindfuck though, like going through the whole game, not finding a single one, and then you smack a wall, and it's like, holy shit, it exists.
Yeah.
Like it actually exists.
It fucked my brain.
So.
It really did. It was just
I mean, yeah, that's really interesting. It's they're trying to. Well, what's very obvious, for better or for worse, is they're trying to take PvP and put it into a box that's for like actual PvP enthusiasts. Which I mean is shown by the mechanics in game with like the Bell Maidens and all of that stuff. Like, if you're just going through the game by yourself, you're not gonna fight another player unless you're in one of the 2 areas where there are Bell Maidens by default. Unless you summon people, in which case, that's anyone who's got friends with them and stuff. That's not the same as being alone in the middle of a level full of angry enemies, and then it's like so and so has invaded you. Like those days.
Well,
are gone,
the Sinister
I think.
Challenge that I was running. I mean, you did the Sinister Challenge. Yeah, I mean,
I did.
Yeah,
I did
you were
that
doing
from
that from day
because
one.
it was the only way I could get
Peeve did it,
PvP.
and I'm doing it now on New Game Plus Plus. Dude, Ty, man, you got to do it. You got to do
It's
it. and
great.
Do it at a level 100
did
build
it.
though. 110 or 100.
Yeah, I did it, but again, the problem is like gankers.
Yeah.
It's just I can't.
Well, no,
I can't
dude,
get
I'm
the
telling you,
conks, man.
let's do some off-cast gem shit. We'll get you some 27.2 shits. Like, we'll get your AR banging, and then you can wreck these nerds. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it would be really fun. And there's a lot of really cool places that have some really interesting overpowered gankers. The Upper Cathedral Ward, for one, it takes like 15 minutes to invade there sometimes. But
That's so
dude, there are
unappealing.
always gankers there. It's nothing but gankers there, and they're overpowered as fuck, dude. I love it. It's like, get all the werewolves to team up on them, and there's all sorts.
That's
of crazy
awesome.
shit.
Yeah.
Get the brain suckers aggroed, and
I don't know. There seems to be a lot of like just good ideas behind obtuse fucking restrictions and Bloodborne
Requirements. Yeah.
But
that's why I haven't jumped it. Like I've been trying to schedule a time to actually sit down and do some PvP with this game, but it's like, if I have to go through all that garbage to get anything that I really want, and I still can't get the random hunts that I want because they're only in 2 places in the game, and at least one of them's optional. I don't know what the other one was.
But it's so fun.
It's like, what's the point?
It's so fun. Like,
it is fun. I'm hooked, man. I can't stop playing it. I was really mad at the matchmaking until they fixed it, and then when people said that they didn't really fix it, they just kind of expanded the level connectivity range, because people that were 70 were connecting with 110 players. I was like, wow, man, that seems super broken, but hey, more PvP, right?
Yeah.
So that's probably part of the problem
like
that you're
this.
running in Tutai, was that you're level 30, but they expanded the range, so you were hitting level fucking 80
Well, I mean,
players
I
or
have
something.
a level 90. I have a level 90 with like good stuff. Just the only thing I don't have is like the top level gems, but I win like more than 50% of my matches. That's not really my problem. My problem is just that I find the duels in the game to be just kind of repetitive, and I find if you're dealing with someone who is healing a lot, it's punishable, but it's very difficult to properly punish healing in the game. So what ends up happening, and a lot of people, as soon as I mention this, they're like, healing's a part of the game, like don't whine. And I'm not whining about it. I understand healing's a part of the game, but I don't want every duel to be 20 minutes long. I think a duel is something that should be a minute long, and a gank is
20
something that
minutes
should
long.
be 20 minutes long.
Well, I'm
If I'm
fine
going to
with
run
HUD
around
being
a level, if I'm going to run around a level for an hour, I want it to be against like a 3v1 where they're re-summoning people and they're just like, they keep falling back to like a fortified area.
You
And
want
I've had
the
that happen a
44-minute
couple times.
one.
Yeah, dude, exactly. And I've had incredible gank spanks that are that. It's just like, the group, when they're 2v1, they're scared of you. As soon as they're 3v1, they fucking come out of hiding and they bum rush you. You kill one of their friends, they hole up again. But I don't want my duels. I don't want to duel some nerd in a trench coat, because everyone's in a trench coat who's healing every time he gets hit, and I have to waste all my bullets trying to punish the goddamn guy, because you can dodge 14 times in that game on one stamina bar. And I mean, I know punishing healing is a thing. It's very rewarding when you get it. I've done it many times. You punish them when they're chugging, and it's the best feeling in the world, but like it's too hard to do on a consistent basis. If the player's good, they know to just dash until you miss your shot and then they heal. And it just ends up being like, after every duel that takes 20 minutes, I have to go back and either refarm, my bullets or my flasks, unless I have a full stock of them, or go and just like buy them. And it's, I don't know, it makes, I find the dueling feels more like a chore. When you're dealing with that kind of thing, like a 20-minute fight because everybody's healing forever. And I think that's one of the reasons why I started to get fed up with the game, because the ganks were legendary. I had so much fun. If you guys watched any of my streams during like kind of the early days of Bloodborne, I'm fighting gankers. I'm like, I got this fucking grin on my face and I'm trash talking them, and it's like the most fun I've had in so long. And then when I'm in duels and it's like, chug, 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 like on both sides, and just like hit the guy 2 or 3 times, dash away 9 times, heal, like dash behind a wall, heal, fight, chug, shoot, gun spam, chug. It's like I start to dream
Dark Souls
about
1 all over
how
again,
much
right? Without backstabs, basically.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
exactly,
the good thing is that even though those fights do happen sometimes, it's there are people that do respect the whole honor duel thing and stuff. I feel like it is pretty difficult to punish healers if you're not always dueling like all the time, and it takes a lot of training to learn how to punish. I still don't have it down all the time. I get punished healing myself when I try and counter heal, and strafing bullet shots is a really important tech when it comes to fighting people who heal if you're healing yourself.
And I think the one of the things that threw me off about that is like, you coined it perfectly. Like, punishing healing is definitely a skill to be learned, and it can be done. It takes a long time to get really good at it, but what you have to realize is what you're grinding to be able to do, and what you're learning this skill. And let's say it takes X amount of hundreds of hours or whatever to get really, really good at punishing healing. On the other end, all the guy is doing is pressing a heal button, so you're learning this thing that takes so long to get used to punish the easiest thing in the whole game. Whereas, like, if you look at, say, Dark Souls 1, the easiest thing in the whole game was to just R1 spam someone to death, because you'd stun lock them, they could never get out of it, they don't know how to toggle escape, and they're just dead. But the counter to R1 spam was to learn to just set up parry. The guy swings once, you block with your shield, you immediately throw the parry, you punish him, and most bad players would just keep getting up and keep R1 spamming you, and you would just, and then there was other techniques like chain stabbing and stuff, but heal punishing, in my opinion, is just the most frustrating.
It's frustrating,
thing
but think about it, Ty.
to
What,
learn.
what
Well-
if they didn't even have that as a mechanic? Because it's not a mechanic in Dark Souls 1, it's not a mechanic in Demon Souls, and in Demon Souls you could spam grass all day, and that's just, I mean, they could do the same thing. I mean, there's really no way to stop somebody in
Mhm.
Demon Souls. This way, at least there's a way to punish it, even if it is ridiculously hard.
Yeah.
I still love it, man. I still agree with it, and I think it's a perfect system, to be honest.
Well,
I don't think it does enough
Yeah.
to make up for that. I think, as Ty said, the disparity of difficulty in what is advantageous, and it's so much easier to just sit there and just quite literally just sit there and chug. I mean, because if it's that hard to if you sat and chugged and did nothing else and ran away in the Souls games, you'd get slaughtered because it takes so much longer. You're paused. Backstabs have this kind of snappiness
Really,
to them.
Estus
all that other
is actually
stuff kind of works
faster
against them.
animation-wise than a Blood Vials, and it actually restores like 3 times the amount of HP because you could boost the flask to +7. So I mean, they could run behind a corner and get 1 flask off, and they're full HP. Whereas in Bloodborne, there's a 2.5 second animation that you can punish. I mean, I don't.
Did you just say that blood vialing is a
Yeah,
2.5 second
it's a
animation?
it
That's
is
not
true.
That's not true.
It's almost instant. Have you watched?
There's
the
no
video?
way
His
that's
arm
2.5
goes up
seconds,
and
man.
then goes down. That's like 2 seconds.
Nah, it's not. Dude,
All right,
two
I'm
and a
gonna
half
count it
seconds.
right
no
now.
way, man. It's
We're
three-
going into science mode.
You have a window. Your window.
Do we have to compare
punish,
videos for this?
Your window to punish, if it's 3/4 of
It's
a second, I'll be
anticipation,
baffled.
though.
It's
like
not a
you're
full
thinking,
It's
you're
not.
thinking the second
No,
he
no, I
starts
get
his
that, Sen. No,
animation
no.
is
No, Sen, I
it's
know that.
instant
It's not
if
a
he
sight
starts
thing.
it without
it's
you
a
shooting
psychology
first.
thing. Dude, I know, and that's the thing. I know how to punish. I know you need to know your opponent is going to heal, and that's one of the problems because
Why is that a problem? That's the way Dark Souls was
The-
with
the
parries
mis-
and backstabs.
no,
For me,
but
it was.
the problem is the guy can dodge 14 times.
So let them dodge
So,
14
like,
times and then punish them.
Yeah, but
It's about
the-
pressure. I mean, it's the same thing as it was in Dark Souls and Demon Souls. It's all about pressuring your opponent. I mean, if they're the type of person that backdash
You
and heal,
had more variety than that.
Well, there's kind of two things going on right now. Like, one, we're trying to apply how we did things in the previous games to this game, which may not necessarily
even be appropriate at all.
right. And two, why is healing such a bad thing?
That's what I'm
Like-
saying. I love healing.
because-
I
Hold
love
on,
healing.
drags
hold
on
on.
as
Let
the
me
complaint. It's great.
When
kind
I'm
of
when I'm
explain
shitty,
what I'm
I
saying.
get punished, and I deserve it.
Well, let me explain what I'm saying. Like, think about something like an arcane build. If an arcane build is going to become viable, if, like, let's say they actually make the spells do like some decent damage, that kind of player is going to be using blood vials and blood bullets to actually sustain themselves. Like, that playstyle is going to rely on healing. So to kind of like say like, oh, we have to basically make it incredibly easy, or not easy, but make it, really punishable and basically remove it from what is acceptable for matches. I don't know. I don't know if we can really can do that. Maybe we just like, that's just how the PvP is, and if you don't like the healing, then play Dark Souls 1.
It's
or,
not.
There's
For
healing in
me,
Dark
it's
Souls
not
1
that I
too.
don't like the heals. It's that I don't like the idea of a 20-minute.
no,
duel.
fair enough.
For
Fair
me,
enough.
if there are if 20-minute duels are the landscape of this game, whether or not, like what you just described about arcane builds, yes, an arcane build needs to use vials and blood bullets and all of this stuff. But if a 20-minute duel is the average for a player who is of average skill, which I consider myself to be, I haven't played hundreds of hours. I haven't studied the frame timing, all of that stuff. I just play the game, and sometimes I do well and sometimes I don't. So if I consider myself to be an average player, and another average player comes into my game, and because we're both average players who we're learning to play the game, and we are stuck with 20-minute duels that have like heals and counter heals and gun spam, and you ran out of bullets, now use blood bullets, and just for me that's a deal breaker, and that's just my own opinion, because if I'm in a game for 20 minutes against a guy I've killed 19 times over, but I just can't quite stop him when he's fucking smashing that vial against his leg or whatever it is he does. for me, that's a deal breaker, and that's why I stopped playing Bloodborne. It was just like it wasn't fun to me. And then when I did, and the turning point for me where I realized I wasn't having fun was when I punished the heal finally, and I fucking killed the guy. It wasn't a sense of relief anymore. It was a sense of frustration because I'm like, holy shit, how much work did I just put in to get the one guy? You know, I want to put in that work to beat a 3-man gank squad in the forest in Dark Souls 1. I want to put in that work to win a crazy guerrilla invasion in Dark Souls 2 where I'm running up ladders and, you know, doing all these different triggering traps and all this different shit. But in Bloodborne, that amount of work and time, effort is for like a 1v1 against some other guy in a trench coat. And for me, I was like, man, and that's why I went back to Dark Souls 2 of all things.
It's really weird.
Just because
I have like opposite response to that entirely. I don't mean to cut you off, but like I wonder how much of it has to do with, I know a lot of people that kind of share my opinion started with Demon Souls, and I know you started in Dark Souls. And the only reason I bring that up is because of how easy it was to heal in Demon Souls. Like Dark Moon Grass was dupable with, you know, Stockpile Thomas, and it was Divine Blessings. Like they cleared you of all status effects. They were fucking fast as hell, and it was a full heal. And they were stackable to 99. Like everybody had 99, right?
Yeah, you guys had
Frosty,
99,
right? Just to quickly interrupt. How much invading did you do in Demon Souls versus 4-1 dueling?
That's the thing I'm gonna kind of say. Like, you know, if you were actually invading, trying to, you know, kill people playing through the game, they would heal like a fucking crazy piece of shit, like all the time. But if you were doing
and that would drive me crazy.
And if you were doing the dueling kind of thing, it wasn't too bad because people wouldn't do that. So when you say you're dueling in Bloodborne, I mean, are you like the people that are healing like crazy? Are they sitting there waiting for you to fight and they're still healing, or are they playing through the game? The other thing too is
no, they're waiting for me in the nightmare frontier like everyone else, and they're just like, okay, well, you hit me once, I better heal up. And it's like, okay, and then I start to realize that unless I get lucky, because again, I am a player of average skill learning the game, unless I get lucky, I'm here for 20 minutes, and that is so unappealing to me. And I think personally it's a question of mechanic balance. But again, that's my own opinion. I think there's something that maybe could have been done to make healing a little slower. And I know that would have changed everything in PvE as well, but like something could have been done, make the window a little bit bigger so people can't just like and again, this is a player of average skill fighting a player of average skill, and that's me. And the fights, the duels, sometimes are the most tedious goddamn thing in the world.
That, you know, if it did open that window just, you know, maybe by a second, it would definitely give me the hell of an edge, like on a lot of players.
100%.
So I would agree with that. Let's do that and make it easier for some of the other players too, because, you know, dude, I did a 12-minute fight with some guy last night and I lost after all that, and you know, I couldn't punish him. Normally I would get the punish, somehow I just never landed one, and he got the win. And you know, it was kind of obnoxious, but it had my heart beating, and I was still happy at the end of it because of the excitement I had. But sometimes it's like sometimes you don't want that, though. I can understand that sometimes you do want that quick duel mode, and you know, that's not even guaranteed when you go into Sinister Chalice dungeons with the quick route when you're just looking for a quick adversarial match. People play dirty there too. You know, it's like people are playing dirty everywhere you go, and it kind of sucks that you get those.
Yeah, but I just hate that a dirty, like if people are playing dirty or whatever, like I said, for players of average skill, it's a 20-minute fight. And I by the time I'm done, unless I'm having the best duel of my life, I'm just done. Like I don't know. It sucks the life out of the game.
No, I know what it is. It's okay. So first off, healing is not even remotely a calculated risk. You can just do it, and you can create a situation where it's convenient very easily. Second, is that you've won in the first minute, and you have 19 more minutes of the same garbage, and you may not even win because you might run out of steam, but you've effectively finished the battle at that point. I know some people are going to say, well, if he's not dead, then you haven't finished, but it's like, if you're crushing the guy, and you've gone through that many health bars, and all they're doing is backing up to heal, then there's kind of a problem at that point.
But I mean, if you're crushing them, then you're forcing them to heal faster than you are, and you're gonna win.
You're out damaging them overall.
Yeah, but that's the problem, Frosty, right there. That's the problem. It's still a marathon, and again, it's a question of opinion.
Are we really complaining
you guys,
about
maybe
not,
you can deal with that.
going man-to-man marathon mode against some other asshole?
We are Frosty, because we are complaining about that because as someone who has done 12-hour PvP streams and stuff, like
we've done those too, but
I get doing that.
Yeah, but there's no change in the situation
I know you guys
in that 19 minutes.
But what I'm trying to explain, like my position in the way that I look at these games, and like the thing is, as soon as I've done my 20-minute fight and I finally kill that guy, I know that the next time I ring the bell, I'm gonna fight that motherfucker again, because that's how streams work. Yep. And that's the curse of the streamer, is you're gonna fight that guy 28 times tonight. And again, this is like, you've heard of like first world problems. This is streamer problems. We don't have the same problems as other people. We have to deal with hackers following us, and we have to deal with like abnormal hate mail and all that stuff. But like, holy shit, man. It makes me crazy when I invade the same guy 4 times in a row, and I'm like, I've got to go through 20 vials.
I ever get that, dude? I wish I would get that, man. I tried so fucking hard to fight that guy.
It's weird because I
wanted to murder him.
I have a really different view on that. Like when someone does that to me, I just laugh the whole time. Like, you're healing again, really? And I'm just giggling, and I have a smile on my face. Like I don't know, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah, but what about like when they, after the 19th time of healing, they actually
get you?
They get
oh shit!
but then I can laugh
your chat's
about
like,
it.
lol,
Yeah, they force you to burn out and get sloppy.
But I don't.
And Frosty, you end up with 10 screens of people saying baited, outsmarted, you got greedy, blah blah blah. And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna play.
Yeah, but
I'm gonna play better.
If that was happening, then I did, and I kind of laugh at myself and I laugh it off. Like, I don't know. For me, it's.
I dealt with that until I stopped losing, pretty much, and I do lose every once in a while now, still against some really top tier players. But shit, I gotta take my hat off to them, man. They're good. They punish me when I deserve to be punished, and I don't catch certain shit. So, but again, I've PvP'd like close to 300 hours, man. That's a lot. That's a lot of time to analyze a lot of different techniques, a lot of different weapon combination. A lot of
Okay, I got a quick question then. How much low level PvP have you guys done?
I've only done soul level 100 meta.
Okay,
PvP.
so you've only done meta PvP. What about you, Frosty?
Very little low level, yeah.
Okay, and I know
the only reason why, and this is my personal
I do need
opinion,
to interject though.
Only reason why is because I cannot take low level PvP serious, because I feel like if I was a low level, I would have to adapt my build, such as you have, to not have an OP build at low level, because that's twinking, right? So I wouldn't be twinking, but guess who would be twinking? My whole chat. My whole chat would twink me.
Why not?
So I can't deal with that. And then I would be killing innocent level 40 newbies, where I've spent 300 hours PvPing against tryhard. So my skill level is like way higher than these guys. And I would just be like abusing these poor, I can't do that. I gotta fight against the best, in my opinion.
This is the way I play. This is the way I play all Souls games. And I know there are people out there who do this as well. When I play a Souls game, I'll give you an example in Dark Souls 2. Dark Souls 2, when you're running through the tutorial... Hang on. Shush. When you're running through the tutorial area, one of the very first items you find is your first cracked red orb. Do you know when I use that cracked red orb? As soon as I get to the Forest of the Fallen Giants. Because why not? Why not invade somebody else who's also on their first run of the Forest of the Fallen Giants? And just, you've got +0 weapons, who cares? Just fucking see how it goes. And and with Bloodborne, what I do for my sinister challenge or whatever, like I notice Peeve and everything, like a lot of people do their sinister challenge when they're on New Game Plus or they're halfway through their playthrough. I do it as soon as I rush the red bell and I ring it as soon as I'm in an invadable area.
That's not
and
a sinister challenge. That's a suicide fucking challenge because you have
why is
it's suicide because everyone in the world now that whether you like it or not, has a twink build at that level range. And they will fuck with you the entire time. It's not fun. It's not enjoyable. At New Game Plus, you've got to build, whether or not it's OP, you've got to build to work with. So at that point...
So are we highlighting the problem that at any given level, there's an enormous variance of player capability?
Why does low-level PvP fail?
Because people break it with twink builds. It's because the super tryhards will go through the Chalice dungeons at level 30 and get 27.2 gems and max the fuck out of their gear and two-shot you. That's what they do. Is that okay? I personally don't. I personally don't think that's a cool thing to do.
That's a streamer problem.
But people are doing it.
Okay, so would you say that there should be a mechanic that doesn't allow that to happen? I'm not baiting you into saying Soulbrandt. I'm just saying at all. Do you think that the game should be set up in such a way to where if you're early on...
I've been kind of thinking about that since Dark Souls 1, is that they really, a good game that does it well is Final Fantasy 14. Now, I understand that it's not an MMO, but they have a mechanic where if you're like level, let's say your item level 110 or something, and your friend is only item level 30 and he can only do the level 30 dungeons. Well, if you want to help him, the game scales all of your stats to a maximum cap for the level 30 dungeon. So,
if you could say that there's one of two things, either a constraint in your capability based on your matching, or you're only matched with somebody of that net capability, like soul worth equivalent. You know what I mean?
I think that would be nice if it wasn't just attached to the net worth of echoes, and it was attached to the overall capability of the player's given stats. So like AR, defense, physical resistance, like I'm talking about
that's
intelligent matchmaking and not just a random pool of people being tossed in a lobby.
No, yeah. What I think might be okay in that case. The problem is that it becomes very difficult to say, like, you changed your items, you've swapped out a weapon or whatever, right? And then suddenly you don't match with somebody else. I think that's the problem that could exist in the system, because if it's factoring in maybe your consumable items, maybe not. It's like the problem is like you have a lot of variance, but let's say it's everything in all of your consumable items, anything that you don't have boxed, plus your character, all your weapons, armor, whatever, used for matching. Like if there was a way to say changing out what you have isn't a huge problem, but you still factor in everything associated with your character, like that would effectively eliminate twinking.
Then it wouldn't just be like,
but
we're taking into consideration.
But then you introduce other problems where now your available matching pool is diminished, and then you have even
and that's
harder problems.
That becomes very difficult to kind of really weigh.
To me, the solution is if you have problems with low level stuff, just fucking level up.
I personally just enjoy being level 100.
That's why I PvP at the higher level. First off, not only are builds typically normalized, but Bloodborne has this really stupid, well, I don't know enough about it to say, but there's this mechanic where there's a defense stat that is only affected by character level, and it has a huge impact on how much damage you take, which is why like people at low levels get fucking two-shot. Not only do they have really low health, but they take way more damage from enemy weapons.
Physical defense and physical damage reduction is way lower than what it should be to withstand damage from those type of
so
weapons.
I actually level up to extend the duration of the fights, and people are complaining, people heal. Like, no, it doesn't bother me.
So why is that there? Why
I don't
is
know.
that? Is that to make sure that only people like you can enjoy PvP, like the people who want to play top level meta PvP? Because I understand why that exists. I did it in Dark Souls 1 and everything, but when Dark Souls 2 came out, I started to fall in love with like low level just play through PvP. I would get to a new area, I'm like, man, I got a handful of orbs, or I'm in a covenant that lets me invade. Let's take an hour. I call it a PvP break, and no matter where I am with any level, any character, whatever, I just PvP for an hour, and it just helps me forget about how much of a grind fighting AI idiot zombies is in these games.
Absolutely.
I like and what I'm gonna say now is that like I went back to Dark Souls 2, and a lot of people think that's gross. So like,
It is
why
gross.
would you ever do that? But I went back to Dark Souls
Frosty.
2 on PS4, and I did it the same way I did every build. I got my character to the bell tower. I have a I had my +5 weapon or my +6 weapon there, all my other stuff unupgraded, and I use bell tower PvP to get chunks to fully level up my weapon. And dude, I'm having a blast. It's great. Like I don't feel overpowered. If I fight a guy with I'm using a big club so I can 2 or 3 shot someone, but it's really hard to land a huge club swing. And, if they hit me 4 or 5 times with their longsword, I die. But what I'm saying is that, like, it feels like I feel matched up. And because it's low level PvP and everybody's adaptability is so shit, no one can heal. So all the fights I have, even if I'm fighting the most scared host, the host with like 6 phantoms and he's just like in a constant panic, he cannot heal to save himself, and I get to kill him every time. And man, I'm having a blast. It feels so good to actually do dirty guerrilla PvP again without worrying about all the stuff we kind of just discussed. And I think my problem with the direction, and I don't know if I think if Bloodborne is the direction that possible future Souls-esque games are going to go, but where I am right now with Dark Souls 2 on PS4, because of no save editing and no people adjusting their soul memory and all that stuff, it feels fair. It feels like at any level, if I invade someone, I'm going to be roughly equivalent to them. No one so far has like 1-shot me or 2-shot me or whatever. And I don't know. I'm wondering if that's a thing of the past. If
amusingly enough, that's the benefits of soul memory at the lower levels, but the soul memory has a problem at the higher levels, whereas with this game it's the opposite. You have problems at the lower levels and benefits towards the higher levels. So
yes, okay, that's a really good point. That's actually
it's a bit
a really good point you just
compared
made.
to Dark Souls 2. And then the nice thing about Dark Souls 2 is that you don't have to worry about like any sort of crazy scaling with the weapons after the fact of them being completely leveled up. In this game, that's not really the case.
Because
They can go play around in these dungeons for a little while and pick up some really nasty things to attach to their weapons, and then guess what? Boom, you're dead. So
it's interesting. Like you take something where your character is at a particular level, right? And then you can continue to extend that out way more than you like. It's not just like upgrades for your weapon itself, just like the plus whatever. But it becomes almost reminiscent of everybody having a better version of what pyromancy did in Dark Souls 1, where you have something where, for example, if you took a character who was a pyromancer class and they started level 1, and they spent a bunch of souls just completely upgrading the glove, they would get to like level 56 with the same amount of souls. It's like that's the difference in
the amount of souls it takes
single
to
level
level
character.
Up a pyromancy glove is the same
the entire way.
Is to get to level 56.
It's like 56 or something like that. It's something ridiculous.
That's crazy. What?
Yeah, that's actually really crazy.
But yeah, I don't know. I think this kind of discussion outlines kind of 2 problems associated with the different ways of matching, and I don't think From's really figured out a good way to make both work. But I don't know, it's just my perspective on it and my approach to it's just been like, level up because everything will normalize, fights will last longer, it's still fun. But
when they normalize like that, like I'm not saying soul memory was perfect, but if they we already have a video on this, but basically like if they had made tweaks to where things would normalize similar to how Dark Souls 1 did it, where, difference between 120, 150 or whatever ends, 200, 300, whatever.
Well, that exists
is not
here,
really super significant.
But the problem is the gems specifically. I mean, if you remove gems from the equation, the actual diminishing return scale is identical in this game not identical. It's very similar to this game, to Dark Souls 1, and it's almost identical to the way Demon Souls did it. It's just the fucking gems have the problems.
The gem, see, that's the thing, and everyone's like kind of pointing the finger at the gym saying, well, here's the problem, because we're getting 2-shot at low level, people are getting these gems twinked, and even high level, it's like, well, my build, I don't want to have to go through all these chalice dungeons.
to get reasonable
think,
PvP.
Not just to get reasonable PvP, but just be a contestant to even be a contest against your opponent because he has these OP gems. But look at it though, it's like even in the earliest part of the game, right when you hit Old Yharnam says, "Get the chalice from Old Yharnam, get some friends, go into the chalice dungeons." He's actually telling you if things are too hard and beasts are looming or whatever and they're too formidable, go into the chalice dungeons, get these gems. And at the end of that crazy trail of all those chalices and all those bosses and all that hell with the cursed defilement and all that, it's
awful.
like this. It's like this ultimate reward is here. Now you've been granted the power of the gods in these gems. Put them in your weapon and go wreck people that don't want to do this. It's like a reward for just loving this game, and I can't hate that.
It's a reward for trudging through a lot of garbage.
Hang on, you guys. I'll be right back. Someone's at my door.
Why I ignore chalice dungeons because they're boring.
Yeah, no,
they're terrible. They're structurally awful.
Boring and repetitive and awful.
They are for a lot of people. I know a lot of people don't like the chalice dungeons. I actually enjoy them a fair bit. I know Sun likes them quite a bit. But yeah, it's this weird kind of situation where you kind of need them to be, quote, competitive for people who are going to be using them as well. Like there's a huge disparity. But like I said, that's kind of one of the reasons why I like this idea of going higher level. If we're going to talk about fucking meta level and what soul level should people be, I'm always going to say you should be higher, which is actually the opposite of what I said in Dark Souls 1. But my reasoning for that is the stupid defense stat is directly tied to your level. Nothing else affects it, and it is the biggest thing that determines how much damage you actually take from a weapon swing. Like, okay, let's put this in perspective. I did a little bit of testing on this. So Ty, if you have like a 250 attack rating weapon and you're soul level 20, that 250 attack rating weapon's probably going to do like 230 damage to the person you're attacking. Like it's
sure.
Like if they're naked, I should say. So if someone's naked, your 250 does like 230 damage. If you're soul level 110, that 250 attack rating is doing like 75 damage. It's crazy how much
it leads me to believe that they really, at the end of this game, look at it. At the end of the game, you're about level 100. It leads me to believe that they are almost
They want you
insisting.
to PvP at the end of the game. And
they're
that's
saying,
fine.
listen, they put the cap on Dark Souls 1. That was a Miyazaki game. Even though the arena was tacked on, they put 100 as the cap. They said everything past 100 is whatever you want to be because they don't care about anything past that. There's no respect for them, in my opinion, for the devs themselves, saying anyone past this is just whatever they want to do. But this level right here is where it ends, meaning this is the pinnacle of what we are calling the meta. And this game is where that's where it ends too. It leaves you at about level 100 at the end of a single playthrough if you play it right and do everything.
But they had like level 50 to 100, level 101 to 200.
That's true.
Like there were different.
And I think that they had that for people that enjoy lower level PvP,
But okay,
like
so I have one
like
problem at the heart of all of that. To make PvP bearable and good and balanced at level 100. And you're like, okay, you're done the game, you've beaten the game, you're ready for PvP. All right. That's how I was when I first played Dark Souls 1. And then I was like, that's cool and everything, but what about what happened to the Dark Wraith? What happened to the guy who invades an area? Like, what happened to you're playing through with your friends and so has invaded? Like, what I'm saying is that by them catering everything to higher level play, you lose that wonderful guerrilla aspect of invading people playing the game. Like the Dark Wraith is essentially dead at this point. It's not
that happened in Dark Souls 1 and Demon's Souls. I think the bigger problem, Ty, right now is that the way the matching system in Bloodborne is set up is that in those kind of random areas, the people that you're actually going to be invading are more than likely going to be people who are ready for invaders because there's no bell
And I
maidens.
hate
Oh
that.
no, I agree.
hate
I
that.
agree. I think it's a really fucking stupid
Because I
system.
do not want to play a game
Because
like
imagine this game where you could just forcibly enter someone's world regardless if they're online, like something like the way like
Yes,
Demon Souls and
please.
Dark Souls would. You're
something
gonna
like Dark Souls 2, where you can invade anyone,
Forced invasion,
anywhere, no
please.
matter if they're
Yes.
alive or
yeah.
dead.
So you're gonna start fighting a lot more people who are going to not really be ganked out or twinked out, and they're not really going to be ready.
But
for
you
that
should
kind
be
of thing.
matched with people who are similarly capable, though. At that point,
I mean, I'm removing that from the argument just to get the base here, and then we can talk about that. But so having the ability to just invade kind of wherever without restrictions, all the other person needs to do is be online, like Dark Souls 2. Then yeah, you're going to fight a lot more people who are just kind of evenly matched as far as the character is. When you're just kind of doing what you do, where you just play through the game and invade whenever you can, right? Like it's not a PvP character yet, right? But the problem is either system has problems in two different areas. Like I said, Soul Memory
I agree.
Soul Memory either has problems at the high end, and Level Base has problems at the low end. And if you try to mix the two, then you really restrict what your available matching pool is.
But the thing is, with the way that you could balance a system, it doesn't need to necessarily be soul memory. But if it was,
I mean, if your argument is there's a better way to do this, I agree. don't get me wrong.
yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
This is what we've
Like
been
it would have been
given,
so easy.
right?
The simplest dumb thing that they could do with their existing systems and their existing features and their ability to tweak with the calibrations, just make it so that soul memory opens up more and more the higher up you go. What's one? But second, which is the super, super important, is making it so that the diminishing returns start to get ridiculous. That way, basically, there still is some progression over time, but it is not significant for PvP at that point. So you basically, eventually, you start leveling up early on, and you can fight tons and tons of people. They're everywhere. If you're early on, then you're limited to basically whatever you're similarly capable with. You're a very relatively small range because the increases early on are so significant.
I mean, I agree with you. Like the video that you had made, kind of outlining why soul memory specifically is a problem in Dark Souls 2, not soul memory itself. It's a culmination of all these other little problems.
Yeah, I'm not saying
no. But I'm just saying.
I'm not saying it's perfect.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying that.
I'm just saying
we should just go straight to that.
There could be a much better solution for this. But what we're given is, I don't know, Bloodborne's system for matching is not very conducive to that low level stuff for a couple of reasons. So you kind of are forced into this higher tier for PvP.
Yeah, and see, and at the end of the day, that's why I'm not playing Bloodborne right now, and why I don't think it's going to make as much of an impact on me as Dark Souls 1 and 2, just because, the everything is I can tell the focus is on isolating PvP to the higher level people who are ready for it, and it makes sense because I can't imagine the amount of people that have rage quit Dark Souls 1 or 2 because they were, invaded or constantly invaded by people who were like one-shotting them or whatever the case is. So I understand why they did that, but I'm just saying, like, at the end of the day, for me, that's a deal breaker. If because I don't enjoy Bloodborne dueling 1v1 with 14,000 dashes and heals and the struggle to punish, because I don't enjoy that and the possibility of a 20-minute duel, that's going to be what kills Bloodborne for me, because I have no interest in grinding all the way up to the top to a top tier PvP character and doing all that work to just get what we just described, like duels. Like I want, if the game isn't catering to me being able to invade 3 people going through the Hemwick lane and have a sloppy fucking throwdown with like enemies running around and all that shit, if the game doesn't want me to do that, then I'll move on to a better game. That's just, and again, that's what I look for in my games. I only look for guerrilla style just nasty, here's your invader, like now it's time to panic, like where is he? Do we move on? Do we fight the enemies? Do we wait for him? Like do we rush the fog gate?
Do you summon a friend?
Yeah, I want that PvP. The dueling, the street fighter, the like the style, like the arena, the true talent style, like combat, that does not interest me at all. So I think that's at the end of the day what's bugging me about the direction that like Bloodborne was taken. And I understand why they did it, and I think what they did appeals to more people. I'm definitely the minority. As a person who's a dark wraith at heart, to use a really cheesy term, I'm the minority versus the people who
I don't know. I don't necessarily know about that.
You and
in
me,
terms of what
we're
sells,
the minority.
no, not as, but let me finish though. There is one part of that though. In terms of what was a shining feature of these games, the chaos of somebody suddenly being in your world and you don't know what the hell to do, and you have to make those decisions: fight enemies, run away, get to the boss, stand your ground and hope for the best, try to find a position where it's safe for you, have an ally, or, one of the things that kind of sucked for co-op in Bloodborne is that one of the great driving forces behind co-op was the threat that somebody else was just going to barge
100%
in and screw with you. And now it's not there anymore.
What? Yeah, what? What are you talking about?
What?
What I'm saying specifically is of course the world is hostile and it can be difficult to deal with. Eventually you get into the motions and you can kind of go through it on your own. But in terms of making people want to bring an ally into their world to help them along, in large part was driven just by having the threat that suddenly there might be a red phantom showing up in their world.
Of course, you would summon.
They have to figure that out.
What he's saying,
they're not ready for that.
You would summon to have a bodyguard in the event that a red invaded you. But now, if you're by yourself, you're not going to get invaded,
right?
Because there's no Bell Maiden unless you're in one of the few areas. But I'm gonna just for the sake of our conversation,
I see what
I'm going
you're
to ignore the areas that have. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I'm going to ignore the areas that have constant Bell Maidens. So now, if you're good enough to go through the game on your own, you don't have to worry about an invader. And the not worrying about an invader, for me, is like the biggest deal breaker for these games. Like the threat of an invader is why I keep punishing myself and coming back to these games. I keep saying it
honestly. What would have been nice? What would have been nice is if they wouldn't have had this like Bell Maiden mechanic, and instead of that, they would have been much better off. I think the new crystal lizard, the scurrying beast.
Yeah.
Okay, if they made the scurrying beast the source of the beckoning bell for the sinister bell or whatever, but instead of making it to where it only spawns if you're looking for co-op or PvP yourself, just make it always present, and then if you go after it to try and kill it to stop the bell from ringing, it can disappear. Just like this
scurries around.
And disappears.
Or even if it doesn't disappear, it just runs full speed all over the fucking place.
Until you get the little bastard.
Only if it could reappear after a period of time. If you're spending a lot of time in the world, it's like maybe that's a constant threat where you can kill it to buy yourself some safety.
It's going to reappear.
But it could show up, and then it's like, well, I better go look for it.
This is actually completely, it's off topic. I just want to quickly interject a little thing, and it's completely sort of off topic. In Dark Souls 2, this is a super minor spoiler if you haven't played Sins of the First, whatever. If you haven't played this, it's a super minor spoiler, but in one of the areas, there's actually a zombie where all he does is sprint around the level, like in the most like derpiest fashion I've ever seen. He doesn't fight you. He just fucking runs like in the goofiest...
And then they cranked up the movement speed like 10 times the normal speed.
He just hauls ass all over the level. And when you talked about like the scurrying beast thing and like the idea of it not disappearing, but it actually just kee's running from you, I immediately thought of that and had to like interrupt. It's the funniest.
So there's a new Bell Maiden.
I have to make a highlight of when I first found it. I just fucking laughed. He's just like, he just runs this circuit all over the level.
Imagine really having a Bell Maiden in every single area just by default. If you're online, there's a Bell Maiden, but it runs around like that fucking enemy in Dark Souls 2.
Or if the Bell Maiden was actually, a threat and not just a fucking
that's what I thought she was initially.
Woman with a dagger.
I thought it was like, you're taking the risk of fighting this thing, and it's effectively like a mini boss. It's like fighting Pursuer.
to make
PvP
like
not
the
happen.
fucking desert sorceresses in Sins of the First
Yeah,
whatever.
there you
Like
go.
those guys are fucking
Well,
dangerous.
they're fucking terrifying in Chalice dungeons. They summon like a fucking army of little spiders, and then you open a door, and there's like
Really?
500.
the Bell Maidens.
yeah.
Yeah,
They're
but they're
awful.
different though. Those
no,
ones
yeah, yeah,
actually
yeah.
aren't
But-
sinister bell maidens. They're just like bell maidens.
But consider something akin to that in the main game.
Give the
if-
sinister bell
yeah.
maidens that.
In the
that
main
would
game,
yeah, that
now
would
there's
be
an
cool.
incentive
Oh, God.
to kill them. They're always present unless you do kill them, so then you're
And the-
summoning other people for problems. I mean, it makes it for a much more chaotic game. But the thing, I guess, is that conducive to the storytelling that From wants to do for their single player experience? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, coming from our perspective where we want to just PvP, we want to just kill people, yeah, that'd be fucking amazing. That'd be so good. But it's I don't know, it's interesting.
But think about all the systems that it would drive. Like if they had a functioning Covenant system and you had consistently threatening PvP, like Dark Souls 2 didn't do this really well either because of, it's the people would drop out of summoning ranges and all, like, and not everyone was in Way of Blue, and there was some, I don't even know what was going on with the way that was set up. But imagine if you had a system where you inherently, like everybody inherently had the ability to say, maybe it was on by default, who knows, that Way of Blue existed, for example, as a concept, and PvP was omnipresent, and, a lot of those systems would flourish if that was a consistent threat, if that was a possibility. Co-op.
So
stuff
here's
like
the thing:
that.
the Sinister Chalice dungeons kind of act like that. They kind of work as this like hub of activity for both co-op and PvP. The only thing is, I've even tried hosting tournaments in them, and they're bugged. They're bugged that you can't have the same invader in your world. There's like a cooldown timer on the same person invading if they've died. I've spent 35 to 45 minutes just trying to get the same two people to get their second and third matches squared off, and it just, even in a Sinister Chalice dungeon with 2 Bell Maidens ringing, with everybody else Bell Maidens dead, and them being the only person trying to connect, is still a 45-minute wait. That's unacceptable.
Oh yeah, the system that they had in Dark Souls 2 for just the connectivity, not the matchmaking or whatever, not the qualification to connect, but just to connect at all, was so, like, I can understand they're going back to the Dark Souls, Demon Souls engine, and all that sort of stuff, but it's like, I don't care how you put that in the game, just fucking put it in there. It is so good.
I agree.
You can connect as much
my
as you
God,
want.
dude.
It's instant.
And
there's
like,
people everywhere.
One of the things like that just like was so good about Dark Souls 2 with all of its flaws is like there were so many ways to fight other players. You had your Rat Covenant, you had your Bell Covenant, you had essentially your Dark Wraiths, you had your Blue Bodyguards, you had your random blue fucking orb invasions, which were the best thing in the whole Soul series. The coolest thing was being able to crack a blue eye orb and invade randomly anywhere in the game. Coolest feature ever. And if that wasn't good enough for you, they had the Abyss Warfare, where all the enemies fought everyone could heal, and it was like this crazy 4-way, like almost like an arena, where you're just like in this. Dude, it was so good.
The only thing I don't like about that is that the
man.
terrain is terrible.
Well, yeah, but that's just they
They
put
could
it
have
in
made it the
wrong place. They
catacombs.
could
It's the
have.
same texture.
They could have. They could have. But what I'm saying is, for connectivity, man, the covenants were so good in Dark Souls 2, man. They were so good. Like it makes me so happy thinking about it. But then you start to remember, all the other problems with Dark Souls 2, and I'm like, man, if they found a way to give me, like, if we could combine all of our favorite elements of the
that's my
Souls games and just
frustration.
make the best
That's my
of them.
frustration, because I can pick out pieces from every part of the different Souls games, and if you can combine it, it'd be like the fucking greatest game ever, like, period.
I'd never play anything else.
But
That would be
I mean, for me, my problem is, like, there's a lot about Dark Souls 2 I like, just in terms of systems and designs for different aspects of the game, but my problem is just on a fundamental level. I dislike how the game feels. I dislike how it feels to move my character around, and that is not something I can get past. So I can't play that game. Like, but there's so much about it that I like, and it'd be really nice to kind of see that transfer over some of those good ideas into Bloodborne. But I guess the other kind of
What I don't understand is how do they manage to touch on this stuff that is so incredibly good from game to game, and nothing like so little of it carries over.
Kind of amusing. That's what I was going to say. Was I wonder how much of that is because if you actually look at it kind of on a chronological order, technically Dark Souls 2 comes after Bloodborne. Like Bloodborne started production a lot earlier than Dark Souls 2. It was also done with a different team. So I mean.
And they had time to develop the engine, and that's why the connectivity, I think, is a lot better.
So it's kind of interesting. Like, I mean, how much of those ideas and innovation there just never got a crossover into Bloodborne? So, like, we're looking at it like thinking that Bloodborne is the next iteration of how this stuff's supposed to be, but I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe Bloodborne is technically between Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2.
That's a good point.
Well, conceptually, at least, I mean, I know the tuning has been absolutely terrible, but conceptually, if those systems that exist, technically, some of the gameplay concepts, I know some of them are terrible, and some of the implementation, the tuning is terrible. But if they took Dark Souls 2 and refined it and incorporated some of what was good from the earlier games, like, they could make something amazing. It sucks to have that glimpse of, like, this could be incredible, and a lot of it still works pretty well. And it's, for Ty, for myself, I'm planning, like, I'm probably going to go back to Dark Souls 2 for a bit. I still want to do Bloodborne PvP, but I don't think it's going to last for me. We'll see. But, you know, both of us are, like, Ty's already there. He's going back to Dark Souls 2. It just sucks to see a glimpse of it and just not be able to actually have that amazing thing that you can see in your
I don't know, man.
head.
I'm still having a blast of Bloodborne. It's so good. But I do agree. If you could take...
I'm actually playing right now in the Chalice Dungeons.
If you could take, like, Dark Souls 2's matchmaking system and Covenant system and just, like, suck it out of that game and plant it into Bloodborne, that'd be amazing. Because almost everything else that Bloodborne does, I prefer. Possibly the exception of the blood gems, but that's just because I think the balancing is off, not necessarily because the core ideas or the design is flawed. I just think the balance is out of whack. But
well, I think
I don't know.
I think that the amount of time it takes to get really competitive is frustrating because
I think it takes a day
you get
to
to a
good
certain
build
point
up and running.
Yeah, it's like about.
But it's so much grinding
really.
just to get to that point. And it's
Use
just
your
like,
chat, man.
you can't sit
I just use my chat
at any
and then
point
get through it
before
real fast.
then.
Plus, there's usually people that are like have like low level builds. Like so for this Blood Tinge build, for instance, like I chose not to even use a Chikage until I had the last Chikage.
How can you not?
So I had to use a rifle spear.
Glorious
with,
Nippon
like,
steel.
I had to use a +5 rifle spear without arcane scaling gems through the entire Chalice dungeons, through the Cursed dungeons, through all of them until I got the Lost Chikage. And that was probably the most difficult experience I've ever had in this game to date.
But it's all so much crap you have to trudge through to get to the
fun.
good part.
It was all good to me. I thought it was all a good
I don't know.
part.
Well, that's going to be a matter of opinion. Some people are going to like the Chalice Dungeon. Some people just aren't.
I'm gonna hate them.
But they've taken a Souls game and made you play Diablo.
but see, I
For
don't
instance,
mind
we're
that. I
talking
like
we're
that.
talking about
If
all
you
this
wanna play-
random stuff.
If you want to play Diablo,
I just made
that's
a
cool.
Chalice dungeon just now, and I'm at the second layer, and I have my beckoning bell. Nobody even knows the glyph, and I just got a friend in here. Like this is. It definitely is getting better, but it's just
The other thing,
it's going to take a lot of work.
The other thing too is you can actually bypass a lot of the tediousness of the Chalice dungeons using that short route thing, right?
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people are doing.
Yeah,
too.
a lot of people on Reddit they're getting the short route. They rush to the short route, and then they just join a random like other person's area. And then let's say you only have access to like depth 2 or whatever it is to get the short route. But then you get summoned into somebody who's like a depth 5, like end game crazy dungeon. You now have access to it. Yep. And now you can.
But that sounds like you're basically breaking the system in order to get around some garbage you don't want to deal with.
I don't disagree.
And it's set up in such a way.
I don't disagree, but
to where it's out of the
putting
way.
everything at risk is basically what it is. It's like here's the short route dungeon. You can connect with anybody, but guess what? It could be entirely random. That's the trick. That's why they place you right in the middle of a room filled with enemies. I think, even though I consider that kind of broken in a lot of cases, that's probably to prevent people from trying to quote unquote break the system by doing that. They're probably aware of that, and they know that. Well, you're taking the risk. Yeah, you'll get into that depth 5 and unlock that. But you're still a low level, so you're still going to get punished really hard if you're not ultra careful.
Yeah, but the thing is that people who are super determined are going to do that. And then by having those people at that point, when you connect to them, like when you win a PvP, which means that in order to compete, as you guys said, you have to be at that point as well, which means you have to go through that same garbage that you don't want to deal with because they're effectively dragging you through it. It's in the same way that From has been, like the invisible weapon rings, for example. They're trying to gate this thing that they don't necessarily want to be so common, but people are going to go through the effort to do it because it's going to be advantageous to them. And then at that point, well, you either have to have an equivalent, or you have to do the exact same thing and go through that horrible grind process in order to get to that point so you're competitive in PvP.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, I think that's just perspective, because some people consider it a horrible grind, other people consider it an enjoyable experience. So it's really
it's
just
kind of based on your opinion of the dungeons.
Well, but I think basically that you're deviating from a lot of what the main game is to do this side thing. You have to play a completely different game at that point, and not everybody's going to like that completely different game. You're basically Dark Souls Diablo now for a bit.
I think that's a symptom of being.
It's like mini games.
That's what Dark Souls always missed, was a really nice procedurally generated system, and this is like the answer to that lack of content that Dark Souls ran out of. Once the lore's gone and the PvP gets boring, there's nothing left. This at least leaves an infinite system.
But the dungeons are terrible.
Well, that's an opinion.
That's open.
That's
an opinion.
That's all opinion. And I think it's a symptom.
But it's a bunch of little tunnels with a bunch of samey enemies with the same set pieces over and over again.
Yeah, but that's
opinion. I really love the way that
doing a new game plus or a new game plus is kind of the same shit. Yet people still do it because the game's just inherently fun to play, right? But I mean. Whether or not you dislike the challenge dungeons, it might just be a symptom of us being or FromSoft being 3 games in and trying to find a way to do things differently.
Because I mean, look at it. They have the story mode for people who just like to play the story. And if you don't want to be invaded, you don't have to be. If you do co-op, well, there's a risk. There's the risk you're looking for, right? And then you have the chalice dungeon mode to upgrade your build, get you better gems, unlock these cool, pieces of whatever lore and whatnot. And if you don't like that, then there's the Sinister Chalice dungeon with the PvP kind of arena mode, the short route. I mean, they have options there for all of the different fans. It's just that one element making it to where it's entirely dependent on you going through the worst and most difficult dungeons in the game to obtain gems that are capable of really making a difference in a match is it might be a bit much. Jerp has a good point there. It might be a bit much for the average player. They're really hard dungeons. I enjoy them now just because of how much I've done them. But I remember the initial experience going through the Chalice dungeons, especially the cursed ones. It was really, really frustrating, and
But should that be tied to your PvP? Should that be should an experience that can be a challenge and can be a the fun of that procedurally generated kind of run through a level, should that be tied? Should that be made your gate for PvP to really compete?
I think the Chalice dungeons, a lot of the issues would be resolved if So the Chalice dungeons are independent of the story, each individual character, right? If you're got all the Chalice dungeons unlocked and you're at the end of new game and you go to new game plus, you still have everything unlocked. You're still able to do everything. You don't lose your progress. I think it'd be a lot better if it was global. Once you do the Chalice dungeons, all of your characters have access to it. So it's kind of like having to go through the game once just to beat it, and then you have access to it on every single character.
Nice. That would be so
now you want to make a new character? Great. You make a new character, and now you have access to anything that you need to do because you've already done it.
Another idea that would be kind of neat, and this is cheeseball, but it would make me happy, is that if you got PvE or cosmetic rewards from a Chalice dungeon rather than OP runes that are necessary for high-end PvP, because one of the things I know about myself as a PvPer is that I don't like PvE. I'm not good at it, and I don't enjoy the experience. So if you want me to be a top-tier PvPer, what it means is I have to go through an extremely difficult PvE experience. Which, I mean, we've all seen me do PvE. It's comedic.
Yeah, you
like,
just
it's
summon
like,
like 18
it's
different
like I don't even know what
phantoms
I'm.
and gank the boss.
Dude, I don't even know what I'm doing. Like every time I do, it's crazy. But like. But what I found really funny about like Dark Souls 1 is I'd have people come into my chat and stuff. They'd be like, holy shit, this guy is so bad. Like, why is he dying to all the enemies? And then I'd go in and I'd beat a 3-man gank squad with like ease. And they're like, what? And people started to realize there is a difference between, some people, like in your case, Sen, you are very good at both. And there are lots of people like that. But for some of us, we don't do the PvE because it's boring. I find PvE, even though Bloodborne has the best PvE of the series, I still find it boring and monotonous, and I really just want to fight players forever. And I don't really have that option. I don't have the option to be the best I can be without also mastering PvE, and maybe that's what they want. And if that's what they want, that I just can't do that.
That sounds terrible, though. You're linking two completely separate worlds in a game where they're trying as hard as they can to separate.
But they're not trying to separate them. They're so close. Look at this. I'm fighting a boss right now that's exactly as a hunter. He's an actual hunter. The Madman, Escort, and Forgotten Madman are hunters. These challenge dungeons are layered with tomb prospectors. I mean, there's hunters in here that are... They play better than the best players I've ever played, and they're the best goddamn monsters to train against because they teach you how to punish healing, how to punish switch attacks, combos, dashing, pressure. They teach you everything in these dungeons, and it's just...
Yeah, but how many fucking AI werewolves did you have to go through to get to that?
Million, man. I mean,
Exactly.
there's so much shit down here, bro. Why do you think I was practically crying for help, man? Because I had to do all this myself. Nobody wanted to do it, and I ended up doing it almost.
Nobody wanted to do it.
I have a genius idea. Here's what you do: you take all the gems in the fucking in the chalice dungeons. You scatter them throughout the game. Okay, that part's dealt with. Now PvP is possible.
Well, they kind of have.
Now
those,
for your chalice dungeons, what you do in the chalice dungeons is you give new hats, and new colors for your fancy for your collection of trench coats.
Clothing could be a lot less brown and gray,
you could get
or
you
get covered in blood. Who fucking cares what color your t-shirt is?
And you could get you could get boots that are like they have like cool patterns on them and stuff. And there you go. Now
Technicolor Dreamcoat.
There you go. Now you have your chalice dungeons. It's all for cosmetic. It's like TF2.
I would hate that.
Cool hats.
I would stop playing Bloodborne if they did that.
You could apply the hats to your armor like gems. Hats
I would be a
I'm
Victorian rainbow pimp so quickly. You have no idea. Especially with the cane. Oh man. Yeah, like just a rainbow colored outfit.
Yeah, you got the cane. You have a cane and a whip together.
Yes.
You're the ultimate
dude.
pimp.
That would be. Oh man, that would happen so quickly.
You'd be prism pimp.
So PC version, we're waiting for the mods, right?
Oh man, I don't think that's gonna happen though. Unfortunately, PC version would be interesting, but not as if you can really mod the game. But
well, at least it would run at a reasonable frame
This game's a lot better than some of the other ones.
Well, I don't know. It's Dark Souls 1 engine. It'd probably be stuck at 1024 or 1280 by 768 and 30 FPS.
We've kind of been talking about the multiplayer stuff the whole time. Ty kind of mentioned it a little bit, but what do you guys think of the actual game itself, like outside of the multiplayer aspect?
Oh, it's fantastic. I think it's by far the most enjoyable and polished experience. The only thing I don't like about it, and this is just my opinion, is that it's a really dark, dreary color palette because it's a gothic horror as opposed to a straight up like classic fantasy game.
High fantasy,
so
kinda.
the fact that there's no color, like when I went back to Dark Souls 2, the first thing I noticed, I'm like, holy shit, it's like daytime. And there's like, you can get like a blue hat now. I'm like, oh sweet, I'll wear this blue hat and yellow gloves, and then my character's got some red on her, and like I just like, there's a sunrise and the enemies are wearing like color and everything's just bright and everything. But again, Bloodborne, the whole idea is like gothic horror. It's supposed to be dark. It's always like foggy and dreary. It looks like London, like the whole thing. But that aside, which is just, a color palette thing, I think it's at far and above the best experience, like for PvE and just overall mechanics of like the whole series just fully. It's so enjoyable, and it's the only reason I've even bothered making like 5 or 6 different characters. I made 5 or 6 characters hoping that the matchmaking would get fixed, and for me to make 5 or 6 characters and just do pure PvE is like, that's a testament you've made a really good PvE experience. If someone like me who hates fighting AI werewolves for hours is still doing it just to, because it's so enjoyable. So I give it like a fucking like 9 out of 10, or it's so good.
Not so much for me. I was looking back at some of my footage and sort of thinking about how I really saw the game, and the one thing that really hit me was freaking Kanehurst. And I'm watching the footage of myself going through, and the random ghost characters show up, and they're trying to stab you with knives or whatever, and I'm sitting there going like, this has like no actual engagement whatsoever. It's like I can attack them a little bit, they die, and they don't really do anything. They don't fight back. They move super slow. There's no persistent threat. It's like,
but
corral them, attack them a
literally
couple
outside
times,
of
and
that
you're done.
castle door, you have the fucking giant baboon bummed fucking crazy
Oh, fuck
enemies
those
that are
stupid things.
just.
Those stupid tick things. First off, there's no reason to ever fight them ever. Second off, fuck
They're
those
the
things
worst,
so
yes.
much. They're not fun to fight. All they do is just
And
jump
swipe,
at you.
and they swipe
And
they swipe.
over and over at
my
Mach
They
speed.
swipe.
It's dumb.
But they're not fun to fight, though. It's interesting. It's like they've made slow enemies who are boring as... And this, at least Kanehurst, anyways. They've made slow enemies that are boring to fight. They've made fast enemies that jump at you, that are boring as shit to fight. They're just frustrating and annoying. It's like, one is like, I have nothing to do. The other one is like, this is cheap and
I
garbage.
will say that probably the most annoying enemy in all of the Souls series is in Bloodborne, and that may be the frenzy.
Oh, those
fuckers,
frenzy
yes.
fuckers?
the giant brain asshole.
the Winter
pieces of
Lanterns?
shit, like,
I was actually thinking...
Man,
The thing is, going back at my footage, and as I was describing this to somebody at work earlier, I actually think those might be one of the more interestingly developed enemies. And as much as I hate them, as much as they sucked to fight in my first playthrough, they do have an interesting change to the gameplay, because you now have a timer. You have to determine like how to move around now. You have to be a lot more observant than you normally would be. It's like, even if you go and try to rush them down at that point, you don't want to stay close, because they're going to grab you. And if they grab you, it doesn't matter if you can survive the frenzy. It is all over anyways. Like, that sort of like chaotic, like, oh shit, like it sees me. Like, am I close to it? Can I run away? Is it worth running away? Like, if I'm close, how do I approach it? Can I kill it instantly? Should I wait it out and do poison? Like, that whole thought process does not really occur with a lot of the other enemies. It's just like, attack, try to spam parry, get the parry, get in there and, do the visceral attack, whatever. And it's like this, it's like, I have to, like, as much as it's stressful and it sucks and I hate dying to them instantly, it's like, or even the areas where, like, there's a couple areas where there's like poison and you have to walk up to them in the poison. It's like, you're already taking damage or risking another bar building up, and you might have lost a bunch of, blood vials, or you've been spending antidotes and you're juggling items. And it's like, nothing else in the game has made me had to run through that whole thought process of like, I don't really know what to do with this thing, but if I fight it, if I'm even remotely next to it and it can see me, I have to come up with something.
Have you done the Chalice dungeons at all yet? Jerp?
I've done like 3 of them, or no, a couple of the groups or whatever of maybe it's 3 of the sets, or I don't even know.
Just
So far,
the mirror ones,
terrible.
Nothing really interesting. Wait until you
none of the super elaborate, cursed, tweaked modifier.
Dude, you get these
dungeons,
enemies called madmen, and they look like punk rockers that are zombified, and they're running at Mach speed with dead bodies.
Andrew Y2K or something. Andrew 2K. I don't know. Yeah,
Andrew
that's it. Thank
WK?
you. I don't listen to his stuff, obviously.
Christ, dude, that enemy has made me just drop my controller and freeze up so many times because of how scary it fucking is.
Well,
I can't deal with that thing sometimes.
They have this super unnatural movement to them. I don't know if you guys have ever seen gifs of that movie Mama, where there's that freaky as fuck Okay, hold on. I'm gonna get a gif for you guys in a little bit, but it is the most disturbing movement, and that enemy looks exactly like him.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. That's horrifying.
Yeah,
the woman, and she just fucking.
Oh, it's so fucking terrifying. It's so
force.
terrifying.
Oh, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's this really.
Yeah, it's a GIF where there's this little girl and like this woman like in the background, and she like turns towards the little girl, and then she like glitches like towards her at like full speed, and it's just like it gives you that same feeling like if a fucking bug ran at you, where you're just like, what the fuck is that?
Well, yeah, because it's like you don't expect that weird ass random like fast movement that you can't really track. It's a combination of like the immediacy plus the complete unknown. You have to be like all those instinctual like fight or flight things fire off immediately.
Yeah, the crazy thing is that its attack pattern is so awkward. You know, it'll run at you and do a really slow attack. So you swing first, it hyper poises through it and one shots you. Or it'll run up to you and hit you right away, and you know you're like, "What? I was gonna wait and parry because I thought you were gonna attack slow." But
that kind of reminds me of the hate fights where they have that random ass like no wind up attack.
So random, dude. I don't even understand it sometimes. Those things kill me more than anything else in this whole game.
What I will say though is this: I don't like that you have a level of unpredictability combined with a one shot. Like I don't like that. I don't think that should exist in games. I think that like. If you don't have a reasonable way to prepare for that, and to like if it can just happen and it's very loosely, at best loosely in your control, at worst completely out of your control, I don't necessarily like that.
I just posted that GIF into the chat. So
oh geez, I remember that one. That one was
terrifying. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, that one.
I've seen this, but I want to see it again.
It's exactly how they move. I hope you realize it's in. Like it's.
Yeah.
Maybe it's inspired by that. I mean, well, the whole general concept at least.
Maybe there's like a core root inspiration.
Is that actually a good movie?
I've never seen it, but I like there's been these gifs like that have been passed around Reddit and shit.
Yeah, like that makes me want to actually watch it because it looks like it'd be.
There's another one that's actually
maybe there's a game based off of that.
I can find it for you.
Oh man, did you guys see the trailer for the new Poltergeist? That looks pretty twisted.
No.
Oh shit!
There's like a little girl, just like the other one, or a little boy or something. I think it's a little boy this time who gets pulled into the closet. It's like this. It's nuts, dude. Go see the Poltergeist trailer. Go watch that shit. Freak me the shit out. I don't do scary movies, man. I don't even do these Chalice dungeons. Like when I first started them, I was like, oh man, this should be cool. Extra content. I thought it was bonus content, like almost like pre DLC. And no, man, it was a nightmare. I was like, oh, this is gonna be fun. It was really scary.
But okay, well, what would you guys say as overall impressions of the game? Obviously, this is.
I would give it despite the matchmaking and the death glitch where you're dead on your screen and you don't disappear and you have to close the application.
Wait, what?
All that stuff aside.
Death glitch. This has never happened to me. What are you talking about?
I have like a good hour of footage where this has happened. Like I could make a montage of it.
That's so weird. I've never had that happen to me.
One time I was a cooperator in a host world, and the host had the beckoning bell ringing, and as he summoned an additional cooperator, he died. The cooperator spawned in. I disappeared, but stayed in my screen. In his world.
Oh, I've had that.
And then an invisible spider killed my invisible body.
I've seen that. Yeah, I've gotten that.
The actual shit is that all about? I would give it probably a solid 8.5 or a 9. Probably a 9.
I'd have to give it 2 ratings because I consider PvE and PvP to be like entirely separate. The way I look at the game. So for PvE, I give it like 9 out of 10. I see nothing wrong with it. It's really enjoyable. It's really fast. I don't know, all the mechanics are there for an enjoyable experience. Like I said, the only reason I wouldn't give it like a perfect 10 is, like Jerp mentioned, there's a few enemies that are just Like, what like, there's a few enemies that are just like, well, this isn't. I don't know. Like Rom, the vacuous spider. That's not a boss. That's a
was awful.
That's a place. And it's I don't know. It's stupid. But anyway, there's
Dude,
you know
Mikolash
is
questionable
the best
things,
fights.
but Mikolash
He's
is
a stupid
weird.
idiot, and he just runs around and you chase him, and he's
the
an idiot.
easiest fight in the world.
And he's fucking Revolver Ocelot from Metal Gear Solid 3.
It's also the easiest
Or
fight in the
one.
world
Do you
to
remember
screw
one?
up. Oh my
no,
god.
no, he had the howling and shit. And
I got murked from that guy.
Did he
on
have
New Game
one?
Plus.
Dude, I get murked
5
from
or
him
6
all
times
the
in a row.
time. He does a fucking like explosion and just one shots me.
Okay, no. Here's the thing.
Yeah, and
Here's
if
the
you
thing.
accidentally
Phase
fuck up
1,
the dodge, you're
Mikolash.
screwed.
Phase 1, strafe to the right because he only does the stupid tentacle thing. So you strafe to the right, backstab. Phase 2, when he gets to the second arena and he's actually doing that celestial body thing, it's the same thing. You just stay right in his face, and anytime he does the tentacle, because he only does the celestial body if you're far range, you just strafe to the right and backstab. It's the dumbest fight in the world, but if you try to dash away from him,
part of it also
will one-shot
is not losing.
it doesn't
track
make
of
any
him.
sense. It's like, wow. If you apply nothing but pressure, you win, but if you cower or get scared and dash away, you instantly die.
So basically, then what you're still saying though is that the boss mechanically is fucking stupid.
Not really. I think it's cool. I like the mechanic. It's just it's tricky, man. That's an interesting gimmick.
I think the concept was interesting. I think the implementation was terrible.
They could have varied it up because having him only do one attack when you're close and one attack when you're far is kind of.
So then you just have a boss that's just like get lost in a really boring maze with really boring enemies with no significant. Actually, you know what? This is the Chalice Dungeon boss.
No,
It is.
don't say
almost
that,
like
dude.
a
Some of the
Chalice
Chalice
Dungeon
Dungeon bosses are just.
No, the boss is a Chalice
Oh.
Dungeon, is what I'm saying. The boss is not a Chalice Dungeon boss because the Chalice Dungeon bosses were actually pretty alright. The Chalice Dungeons themselves suck, and they made a boss out of it, and they called
Wow.
it Mikolash.
You, good sir, are horribly wrong.
You have so much hatred, dude, for the dungeons. They're fun. I want to do them with you guys and make them fun for you.
Well, I mean,
Oh,
Jerp, what
God.
do you think about about the game?
Okay, well, Chalice Dungeons are getting like a 3. Or I don't even know if I can give them a number at this point. Can you go into the negatives? Like, is this... Okay, so the Chalice Dungeon's super garbage so far. Like, I haven't finished them. I've gone through like 2 or 3 sets of 3 or whatever the group is, right? The ones that I've gone through
They're
so far
unentertaining
that
until
I've
you get to
suffered
depth
through.
4 and 5. Like,
So we have another suffering tax. We have a suffering tax for the PvP.
it's not
We have a
suffering.
suffering
You can
tax
do
for
it
the Chalice
as you're
Dungeons.
leveling. Like, as you're starting your build, when you're supposed to start
Oh,
them,
yeah,
they're
yeah.
not that bad.
Even
They're
better.
actually like they feel normal. But if you wait, then they're unentertaining. So you probably waited till your build was 100 or something.
But then I got to the ones where it was actually difficult and shit fought back and had health, and it's like this is not even fun anymore. Like at least for such crappy design and terrible enemies, I could at least blow through it quickly. And now it's like it still is terrible, and up until the bosses, it still is terrible at least at that point. But now you have to actually trudge through it instead of just go through it.
I don't know,
quickly.
man. I still enjoy it. I still don't mind the Chalice Dungeons because at the end of the day, it's fundamentally just fun to play this game. Which the rating I gave it last podcast was not Dark Souls 2 out of 10, and that's pretty appropriate for me. Just because, like, for Dark Souls 2, there were a lot of good decisions that just were completely ruined because the fundamental gameplay felt shitty to me. Where in this game, there's a lot of stupid decisions, but it's still really enjoyable because
But the tuning is more
core
important than the
fundamental
concept.
gameplay is really, really good. So I don't know. That's kind of my issue there. Like we were saying earlier, if you could just kind of combine the best parts of these games together, it'd be fucking unbelievable. But
Hope that the next game is a
Yeah.
little bit more user friendly when it comes to matchmaking, and maybe.
Well, hopefully what happens
Dedicated
is that it does
servers.
happen to be the case to where they couldn't, like, if they were going to try to rush to getting Bloodborne developed and do all this work and have the richness of the world or whatever, like, they couldn't wait for the engine they couldn't wait for the Dark Souls 2 engine to exist, so they're stuck at that point with the Dark Souls 1 Demon Souls engine. So maybe what might happen is that, well, now we have an engine that's like done, has been, games been developed for it, we know how to work with it. Now we could design the next like Bloodborne-esque, Dark Souls 1-esque, whatever game on a Dark Souls 2 engine. So you have all the good matching and all the the calibration system, all this other stuff on a game, that they can put some real big time and effort into.
Like, I hope that if they're gonna do stuff with that engine, they make that an entirely different series of games with that team, because I love everything that this game has with this engine, and I think it's perfect the way that it is. It only needs like tweaking with.
But they could duplicate a lot of the
certain stuff like that.
But they could duplicate a lot of the core, like how weapons swing and how the animations work on an engine that has like better connectivity, and you can tweak.
I mean, as long as they're not compromising the animations, like the way they look and how fluid and natural the characters look in this game, and like the rolling and dashing and all that stuff, like. I would love for all that to stay.
They can do that. They can preserve a lot of that and put it on an engine that isn't a piece of crap.
Here's what you do: you take everything that Sen just described. You give it a robust covenant system with lots of ways to PvE and PvP and co-op, like different covenants that do different things. And when I say covenants, I just mean like something you can join where you're able to connect with other players in weird ways. So we can have things like 2v2s and 3v1s and 3v2s and like all these different, because right now with with Bloodborne, you can't really get a 2v2 unless you're in a chalice dungeon and you all are on the same page. You can't get like a random kind of like 4-player like free-for-all style thing, or have 2 invaders. Like there's no forest in Bloodborne where it's like gankers versus gankers or anything like that. Give us lots of different ways to connect and then give us the mechanics and everything from Bloodborne, and I think we'll be set up for a really good game. Like, part of me prays that if a DLC for Bloodborne comes out that actually has some PvP focus, that I'll be back to the game like 100%, because I dealt with the healing mechanics and punishing and everything. That wasn't a game breaker for me, or anything like that. But like, I want them to prove that they care about PvP, and not just dueling and not just generic invasions, but like interesting, like varied PvP. And I'll be back on board 100%. So I'm praying if a DLC comes, man, and it's just like suddenly like 5 goddamn covenants, and like the forest is back, and we've got fucking random invade anywhere.
So
in the
here we
world,
go.
All
here
of
we
that
go.
shit.
Let's go ahead and discuss this a little bit. What do you guys? So that's what you want for DLC. That's what I'm after for DLC. Honestly, please let's get that in a package, and $14.99 or something. I would love to see them to do more covenants, more ways to connect. Better connection, faster connection, maybe do something with the Bell Maidens, man. Something. Fix that. And then, add the Hintertomb and what was the other one? It was Hintertomb and Loran, Depth 5 Chalice Dungeons. Wait, no, Loran's Depth 5, isn't it? Yeah, it is. But Hintertomb doesn't have a Depth 5, and I think there's another one that doesn't have a Depth 5. So that would be really cool. Add more chalice dungeons, maybe add some new areas to the story mode or something to give people, something new to look forward to, or just more PvP modes. more of that.
Well, I think that's a pretty good time to wrap it up. We've been going for what, like 2 hours now? Holy shit. So,
yep.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out, guys. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was fun.
We'll see everybody in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.